Hello everyone, I'm Willem Frankfurt, presenting for Group C. This is our presentation in the Itazayunas watershed located in the Brazilian Amazon basin. The Itazayunas watershed is located in the state of Pará, Brazil. We chose this watershed to explore the effects of deforestation. Since 1975, development programs have depleted a significant percentage of the Amazon forest land within Brazilian borders. By 2010, over 18% of the forest had been clear-cut for other purposes, mainly pastoralism and agriculture. The red areas of the map represent deforested lands. Our study area has been severely deforested, with more than half of the jungle removed by human activity. Approximately 85% of deforested lands are currently used for cattle grazing. The entire watershed flowed through pristine forests in 1973. By 2013, only forests with protected status as national parks or indigenous reservations remained within the study area. Despite protected status, there has been some encroachment into these protected lands as well. Mining operations in the Carajas National Forest, as well as some encroachment of pasture lands into indigenous territory, can be seen starting from 1994. Recent urban development on the border of the CNF can be seen on the 2013 map. Here we see a massive degree of illegal deforestation in the region. The Brazilian Forest Code mandates that landowners should preserve 80% of their forests. The pink and red areas indicate that ranching interests exceeded legal levels of deforestation by up to 54%. The European Union deforestation regulation, going into effect December 2025, will place steep penalties on beef and leather sourced from deforested regions. This will likely have disastrous effects for the cattle industry in Brazil. Here we have the land use breakdown. Approximately 50% of the watershed area is covered in pasture lands. Approximately 48% is forested. 0.5% is mountainous savanna, 0.3% is urban, and 0.3% is mining, iron and copper mines. Indigenous and protected lands to the west occupy the higher elevations. Here we can see the 11 sub-basins that make up this watershed. Higher elevations to the west are concentrated in the protected lands. The main soil types are argisols, neosols, and oxysols. These soil types have high clay content and are susceptible to erosion. Generally, these soil types are unsuitable for farming. Without extensive soil building, the land is unsuitable for agriculture, hence the focus on ranching in this region. Here are some of the methods and sources we used, as well as challenges we encountered when assessing this watershed. In order to confirm the data from the literature, we employed the ArcGIS Pro 2.9 hydrology toolkit to model catchment area for the Fazenda Alegria streamflow gauge in the IRW. A thorough analysis closely approximated and confirmed the findings of the reviewed literature. Using ArcGIS Pro 2.9, a comprehensive watershed analysis, including delineation and spectral index analysis, was performed. The watershed up to the Fazenda Alegria streamflow monitoring station at the coordinates at the upper left of the slide has an area of 37,504.83 square kilometers and a perimeter of 1,194.712 kilometers. The south and west are bounded by rugged mountain terrain. Elevations range from 890 meters above sea level to 27 meters below sea level. The delineation algorithm defines all points of flow set towards a set pour point. The details of the workflow are on the next slide. First, a raw digital elevation model or DEM raster of South America was downloaded from earthdata.nasa.gov. This is a LiDAR scan of the region, providing elevation data at a resolution of 30 meters per pixel. The hillshade tool was used to map the terrain from a duplicate of the DEM model to assess the topography. Next, the hydrology tool set from the raster analysis tab were applied in order. First, a fill raster was created using the fill tool. This smooths out any imperfections in the gradient data to prepare the raster for analysis. The fill raster was applied as an input in the flow direction tool, which generates a color-coded raster depicting stream flow direction at all points on the map. The flow direction raster is the input of the flow accumulation tool, which maps tributaries of the river system by identifying regions where water is likely to accumulate. A pour point was set at the Fazenda Alegria site. Using a pour point and flow direction rasters as inputs, the Watershed tool was applied to generate a watershed raster, which was then converted to a polygon layer and measured using the embedded tools. To assess vegetation, the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index and Agricultural Index were applied using the USGS Landsat Explorer Classic Viewer. Here we can see high levels of plant distress in deforested regions. This coincides with the poor soil types that dominate this area. Bathymetric analysis reveals heavy sediment flows, indicating accelerating erosion processes. Note the brown tone of the river in the image to the left. This heavily weathered clay soils common to the area are susceptible to erosion in the absence of forest root systems. On the right, the Normalized Difference Moisture Index indicates that deforested regions retain considerably less surface moisture than forested areas. Savannas and pasturelands have considerably higher infiltration rates than jungles due to shallow grass root systems. Water is retained near the surface in the jungle, where the humus layer and extensive root system keeps it from being lost to the groundwater. We can also see some moist areas which correspond to agricultural operations utilizing irrigation. The aridification of this region could accelerate with the impending effects of climate change, as the reduction in evapotranspiration reduces precipitation levels in a feedback loop in this area. The Itazayunas receives an average of 1,662 millimeters per year in a yearly monsoon cycle and precipitation. 85% of the rainfall occurs between November and May, with 15% occurring between June and October. There has been a significant decline in precipitation since 1980. This region is highly susceptible to the Enso cycle, with El Nino corresponding to drier conditions and La Nina corresponding to wetter conditions. Here we see the interannual and intraannual variation in stream flow in the Fazenda Alegria gauge drainage area. The overall slope of the FDC shows how the stream flow or Q values represent the full range of daily precipitation. Q amounts over the full monsoon cycle. The lack of steep slope at the upper end of the FDC could be due to basin size and the number of subbasins, and or the size of the low elevation areas downstream from the Serra dos Carajas Plateau. The small size of the drop-off at the lower end of the FDC could possibly indicate significant base flow due to infiltration and groundwater storage in the forests that still cover 48% of the watershed. The graph below shows a 7-year FDC from 1980 to 2014. So it doesn't appear to show significant changes over time. Note that we used the 7 groupings in order to include the full 1980 to 2014 data set. Intraannual variation showed significant interannual variability, an apparent upward trend during 1980 to 2014. And from the graph of the water budget slide, it appears that interannual stream flow variation generally follows variation in annual precipitation, although the runoff ratio also varies from year to year. So we see a slight increase there. So here we have a water budget and estimated annual evapotranspiration, precipitation P, discharge Q, and estimated evapotranspiration from 1980 to 2014 in cubic meters are graphed here on the left. You can see that the trends appear to show that precipitation is on a downward trend while stream flow is on an upward trend and evapotranspiration is on a downward trend. So the annual evapotranspiration was estimated by subtracting Q from P, with P at 65,806,652,943 cubic meters and 1,753 millimeters per year. Q is 33 33,578,725,431 meters squared. I mean cubed, and with 894 millimeters of so we have the evapotranspiration at 32,227,927,512 cubic meters, for a total net gain of 853 millimeters. So we see here that these are the only streamflow dates that are available. On the earlier precipitation slide, average precipitation was calculated for 1980 to 2024, and that accounts for the difference in the numbers. Here we have the IRW deforestation and hydrological fluxes. Runoff ratio, P over Q, indicates the ratio at which the watershed's influx of water P is partitioned between the outward evapotranspiration ET and streamflow discharge Q fluxes. Okay, so the graph shows an increasing trend in the runoff ratio during 1980 to 2014. Zablisantes et al. Found that RWQ increased while P and ET both decreased during 1973 to 2017. They found that the deforestation in the IRW contributed to an increased Q over that period. At the same time, regional scale interannual variations P and potential PET contributed to the reduction in Q, partially offsetting the effects of Q from deforestation. Souza, Filo et al. Found that conversion of the forest into pastureland, covering approximately 50% of the IRW's area, significantly modified the hydroclimatology cycle of the IRW. They found that this deforestation appeared to be responsible for an 85% increase in Q compared to 1973, with an 86% correlation, a 10% reduction in relative humidity with an 81% correlation, and a 1.7 degree increase in temperature with a 98% correlation. Cavasantes et al. Nor Philo et al. Found no significant correlation between ROW deforestation and interannual variation in P, so it seems likely that larger scale climate phenomena such as ENSO and Atlantic SST anomaly dipole patterns described by Sylvankowski were the main drivers of interannual variation of P and IRW during the study periods. Understanding hydrological characteristics and solving environmental variables. Ponce et al. in 2019 studied the IRW to model land use changes in evapotranspiration and discharge, showing that deforestation of the remaining preserved area could be responsible for decreasing 23% of water transfer into the atmosphere by evapotranspiration. Increased discharge could also lead to water quality issues. This goes along with the GIS analysis. The drier grasslands just they suck the water in, and it has a high residence time in the groundwater and reduces evapotranspiration, leading to a cycle that eventually aridifies the region and converts it into dry grasslands and deserts. All the findings are consistent with the previous slides, and the author suggests that reforestation prioritization should focus primarily around headwater areas that touch forests and look to non-protected areas outside of the indigenous territories. So this indigenous lands and the territories, as well as the national park system, are really the only things that are preserving forest in that area. Everything that's owned by private interests has been just devastated in the past few decades. Co-benefits of preserving aquatic biodiversity through restoration efforts were also discussed. And restoration is incredibly expensive, and often more expensive than the commodity agriculture production, the cattle, the soy, the things that are growing in this region. So the incentive for restoration is not there. Despite the fact that deforestation was illegal, that you know they still cut everything down. There was no penalty. There's no way to enforce it. We suggest that due to their hydrological importance and stewardship role, it would be most pertinent to first restore permanent preservation areas that have been deforested or degraded, particularly those relevant for the riparian buffers or river dams near headwaters that flow into indigenous territories. Thank you for watching my presentation. Thanks to Hillary Fenrick and Brian Martyrer. They put in a lot of work on this project with me, and I couldn't have done it without them. This is, I was mainly on the GIS analysis, and it seems that the literature completely agrees with the GIS analysis in all respects. The vicious cycle of the higher infiltration rates of the deforested areas and the reduction in evapotranspiration could explain the dry regions in this map and the importance of preserving rainforests. Thanks again. I'm Willem Frankfurt. These are my references, our references, and thanks again. Have a good day.